over to you.
Okay, hello everyone. My pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me this morning to warm up the audience, especially before Antonio and Chris. I will try not to make everyone running away during the next 30 to 40 minutes we have to spend together. So social impact, sustainable development, all of those things are very important, of course, to everyone. But it's one thing to say that it's important. It's another thing to walk actually the talk, and to walk actually the talk, you have to understand why you're doing it. There is a rationale behind all of these initiatives that most organizations, not only PMI, by the way, are undertaking. And it's, yes, we want to do good. We want to do good well, but there's a business, I would say, reasoning behind that. And that's basically what we will explore together during the next 45 minutes or so. So just a few words about myself. Yeah, there's a long list of things which I have done doing and will be doing. I have a background in electronic engineering. I've done studies in business administrations, and currently my as professional hobby, I would say, is to be an employee at PMI. I'm the Vice President for Strategic Alliances, which embraces everything related to social impact at PMI. And within these duties, I have the honor and the pleasure to be the Chief Operations Officer for the charity and philanthropic arm at PMI, which is a PMI educational foundation. But all of those things are very boring. More about where does that come from. I was actually born and raised in Paris, in France, as you can hear in the accent. Sorry, the same year as the Olympics in Munich, the same year as we started to try to talk to the aliens. We're still waiting for them to respond. Maybe if we manage to better manage a planet, they will show a sign. And same year as kind of questionable fashion trends. I started my career following studies in electronic engineering, actually in music. And so I was a sound and recording technician, schooled in studios, behind the stages, and so on. But at some point of time, I decided when so-called at this time multimedia started to become a thing, to transition into different things. And this is where I had my first, I would say, formal contacts with project management as such, knowing that I was doing project management or trying to. And which few different episodes led me to develop a career in project management, committing this small piece of literature and getting involved into consultancy, training, and so on, which finally led me to move from France to Switzerland, and then from Switzerland to the United States. So I'm talking to you now from 3:38 a.m. On the other side of the Atlantic, but it's really a pleasure. And yeah, it's been 3 years. I'm fully established now in US. Will be soon a couple of years. I'm an employee at PMI after almost 20 years of interacting and working with PMI in different capacities. But main drivers, as for many of us, are, yeah, I love sports cars, I love good wine, but many other all of these things are overcome by my 4 core drivers. These are my 3 adorable daughters, Alexia, Emily, and Elizabeth. But this picture is quite old, actually. And here we have Charles, who just celebrated 9, and he's here with me in the US. And I said that this picture is quite old because this lady here, Elizabeth, is now 25 years old and has recently committed this little piece. So that's yeah, I'm 49 years old grandpa. So that all of this makes you questioning actually what is your position and your role on this in society. What kind of legacy do we leave behind ourselves? What is the heritage which we transmit to our children and grandchildren? We have an accountability, we have a responsibility even towards incoming generations. And we have actually 2 levels of accountability towards incoming generations. The first one is to leave them with enough resources to develop humanity, to ensure progress of humanity and development. And we also have the accountability of giving back what we have received. When I was doing volunteering with PMI, someone asked me once why I was doing it. And my answer was because it puts us into a virtuous cycle of development. You are lucky enough to be able to afford it. You are lucky enough to be able to consume the resources around you. And that luck, by consuming these resources, you develop new skills, you develop new competences, you develop new means, you enhance your own comfort, your own environment, and so on, which gives you even more resources, more means to develop another layer of added value, which puts you in this virtuous cycle of development. But we're not all that lucky. And being able to put ourselves into this virtuous development cycle gives us, yeah, some kind of responsibility to give back. And not only through volunteering, and not only through nice to have and philanthropic drive. This is true for any type of endeavor. This is true for any type of business. If you don't contribute to the development of your surrounding environment, you will die as surely as that surrounding environment will. That's why social impact is actually so important. If you don't give back to your surrounding environment, at some point of time, you will not be able to take anything from it. As simple as this. So there are many different definitions of social impact. Significant positive change, doing well by doing good, net effect of an activity on a community and the well-being of individuals and families, putting a social innovation mindset. So it's a mindset, it's an effect, it's a philosophy, like Ben Franklin was saying, and it's a change. Social impact is a result of sustained, powerful effort to improve the well-being of our communities and planet. And we hear that sustainable development things for a very long time. And it's not actually about being green. It's not actually about, it's about sustaining ourselves in order to sustain the others, and sustaining the others in order to sustain ourselves. More and more organizations are now engaged into this effort of societal even impact. Why? Because what we call also corporate citizenship becomes more and more important. An organization needs to take a stand. An organization needs to have an opinion. An organization needs to make things moving forward in order to be attractive for employees, in order to be attractive for customers who might eventually then allow this organization to generate more impact and make it more attractive and so on. Incoming generations are now attracted by who is this organization, more than the type of products, more than the type of services that you can actually provide. If you think that you're competing on a given market based on your ability to innovate, actually, it's not true. The lifespan of any innovation on a given market is no more than 3 months. It takes 3 months for your closest competitor to release the same product, the same service, faster, cheaper, and better than what you can do. You think you're competing on prices. Oh, yeah, I compete because I'm the cheapest. The only thing which you do in your organization by competing on prices is actually to make a bet that your competitors will die by hunger before you do so. That might be true, but guess what? You will die by hunger anyway. No, the real competition on any given market is by attracting the right people to your organization. And when I say attracting the right people and retaining them, of course, I mean employees and I mean consumers. You want to attract the right consumers. You probably remember what happened when Nike took a stand on some social movement, equality movement in the US more specifically, and at the global scale as well. A lot of people said, "Oh, but you're gonna lose clients. People will go to Adidas." They said, "You know what? We don't necessarily want people who don't follow us on that path to remain our clients. We want people who actually share the same values, the same beliefs." And what happens is that when you start to attract the right people, when you start to develop this kind of positive mindset, this right people attract other, who attract other, and your business grows. Unilever has very successfully applied this kind of approach. They have established sustainable supply chain. They have lowered their costs by doing so, because usually when you shorten your supply chain, it becomes as simple as that, less costly. They have engaged their employees into that, which is a factor of retention, which is a factor of engagement. And finally, their business grew by 75%. Danone, Medtronic, Starbucks, Microsoft, MasterCard, Tom's, so many, PepsiCo, so many examples of organizations that do that, and they do that, yes, of course, for doing good, but they do that because, of course, it contributes into growing the business. And doing good grows the business. And growing the business allows you to do more good, which, guess what? Grows your business again. PMI, as a non-for-profit organization, is expected to step into this. and embark the community and embark the chapters into this journey. And we're doing a significant piece of that. We have the most influential projects. We're launching a lot of social impact initiatives. Chris will later today describe more in details what the Educational Foundation does on that aspect. I would say that PMI EF is the face of PMI social impact activities, and not the least important one, trust me. Millennials are demanding greater social impact because this is where they want to recognize themselves in the action. Other businesses, when you partner with your clients, with your suppliers, within an economical ecosystem, they want to make sure that their partners are equally responsible in what they're doing. If you apply an eco-friendly supply chain, but your distribution chain doesn't follow that, you're wasting your time. So you have to make sure that actually every single pieces of this chain is integrated into your social impact. And as I said, a growing competition here makes organizations being more recognized by who they are as an organization, what are the values they stand for, rather than products and services, because this is what really makes a differentiator. This is what attracts and retains the best people. And it goes also through the way you're treating actually people. The better you will treat people, the more they will be keen to stay, the more they will be keen to get engaged, the more performant there will be. So it's an entire, can we hide it? Yes, most probably question is how. I haven't explored that yet. But don't worry, you're not missing so much of that. So 42% of millennials have begun or deepened the business relationship because a company has a positive impact on society. Yes, yes. One number concerning PMI, 52% of PMPs belong to that segment of less than 10 years of experience. Less than 10 years of experience, meaning that 52% of PMPs are now aged between 25 and 35 years old. 52%. So it's very important for PME. 37% of millennials have stopped or lessened the business relationship because of a company's ethical behavior. No matter what the price of your goods and services, if you have a crappy reputation, you will lose business. 73% of CXOs said their organizations have changed or developed products or services to generate positive societal impact. You bet. And leading CEOs believe that achieving that success, they must invest into the community. You have to give first in order to be able to receive back. To prosper over time, you need to generate a positive contribution to society. It's the most promising way to build long-term value. And building long-term value, sustainable value, is nothing new under the sun. CEO of GE, Jack Welch, who's definitely known as one of the best examples of capitalism, said that short-term value is the dumbest thing in the world. Shareholder value is the dumbest thing in the world. Long-term sustainable value of an organization, this is what the leaders of the organization have to concentrate on. And Jack Welch said that maybe 50 years ago. It's the only way to be successful over the long term. It is, definitely. If you don't look over time, you will fail. And sustainability is not a very new concept. I learned some time ago a quite interesting fact. France, where I'm originally from, is one of the countries in Europe which have the least wild forests. Most of the forests in France are actually cultivated forests. And that dates back to the 18th century under Louis XIV. Actually, they planted forests at that time to grow trees that would allow them to sustain their navy. They didn't think at the time that we wouldn't use wood anymore to build ships. So, but you know, an oak to grow tall enough to be used to build a boat, it takes 100 years. So even then, they had a perspective of more than 100 years. That's why most of the forests in France are actually cultivated forests. Nothing new. And there is a framework, hopefully, behind all of that. And this is a framework which we're using at PMI. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. They basically frame, shape, map where should we have a positive impact in order to give a proper legacy to the next generations, in order to sustain a livable world. So having an impact on all of the 17 SDGs is basically impossible, but maybe not so much. Can we have an impact on each of them? To a certain extent, yes, we can. But if you can just have a smaller contribution to at least one of them, that's already a good step in the right direction. So whatever we do at PMI is framed around the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. Even the way we measure the impact that we're having as an organization is shaped by this. It gives us a common language with our peers, with other organizations where we have to interact with in this. Because you can't do that alone. That's not going to happen. You can't have the impact on the world, the positive societal impact alone. So it makes also the overall economical framework moving from a society where organizations were competing one against each other into a framework where organizations are co-competing one with each other. So we're working with some of our competitors around these things. We're working with IPMA, we're working with ProSci, we're working with Axelos in developing these different elements, in shaping a common impact. And if you can leverage energies, if you can develop this ecosystem of co-competition, you maximize your impact, you maximize global sustainability, but guess what? You maximize also the sustainability of your business. So PMI social inspiration is about change, and we enable what we call change makers not just for business, but for broader good. And so many change makers will stay as part of our community. We are an organization with a social conscience. PMI Educational Foundation exists for more than 30 years. And the very first initial idea behind PMI that put Jim Snyder and the other founders all together around this table nearby Philadelphia once to establish PMI 50 years ago was actually an idea of sharing. And we keep maintaining that idea, but we do it into a structured way. We integrate within PMI social impact the different components of our organization, members, chapters, volunteers, or effort for diversity, equity, and inclusion, PMIF, of course, the Hours for Impact, which is a campaign which we're just launching around the SDGs. I'm coming to this in a minute. Or Coalition for Purpose, partnering with other organizations in order to enable the corporate and social responsibility strategies in order to create and generate synergies to maximize the social impact. So we have few elements, tangible elements, which we're doing. One of the most appearing, I would say, the tip of the iceberg here is what we call the Hours for Impact campaign. PMI is member of the United Nations Global Compact program. As such, we have committed to generate around 1 million sustainable development goals-oriented volunteer hours throughout our community, shaped around these sustainable development goals. 75,000 hours this year, 2021. And guess what? The campaign has just been launched a week ago, and we have already reached almost 50,000 over this objective of 75,000. Next year, the objective will be 100,000. The year after, 125, 150, 200, 250,000 to reach 1 million by 2025. So where do we have an action? Where do we have an action? We can't have a direct action on all of the 17 SDGs. We could say that, but that wouldn't be realistic, and honestly, that wouldn't be necessarily credible. We need to orient our action where we are the more impactful and where we are the most credible. So basically, when we look at what PMI is and what PMI does, we see that our portfolio of products, initiatives, and programs impact mainly 6 of the 17 SDGs. Quality education, of course. Decent work and economical growth. Industry, innovation, and infrastructure. Gender equality and reduced inequalities. And finally, partnership for the goals. Now, how do we act around these things? There are 2 ways by which PMI more specifically, but in fact, any organization can take a stand and act. We can act as actors on this SDGs. Actors, what do we concretely impact through our actions, initiatives, products, services, ideas, engagement? We have the Hours for Impact campaign. We have the Make Reality Challenge, which we also just launched now, which is a global hackathon for students where they will compete in developing applications that will serve one or the other or more of the SDGs. We expect to have 15,000 students competing before the end of the year on developing these applications. And then the next step of this competition will actually to take their proof of concept and make it a reality. This is what we do also for community engagement. Through the chapters, we have an immense network of more than 300 chapters in more than 200 countries. It represents 14,000 active volunteers, 14,000. Imagine the impact you can have when you leverage this immense efforts, this immense workforce into delivering even small impacts, but small impacts times 14,000, it really is what makes a difference. And we also sponsor research. Even our academic tracks are engaged into this. The sponsor research program within the academic engagement activities at PMI consists in giving research grants to academic scholars to develop their theses, masters, MBAs, PhD theses, writing papers, developing studies, and so on. And since last year, these research grants are allocated to scholars doing research more specifically around the SDGs, and this year in particular, specifically around D&I issues. So that's basically what we do as actors. To see what you can do as actors, it's everything which you can connect to your products, to your services. Yes, your products. Our certification program is actually part of what we do as actors, because our certification program contributes to the SDG number 4, which is quality education, or even our discipline agile program by preaching new ways of working, collaborative and respectful ways of working, along with the PMI Code of Ethics, that contributes to SDG 8, decent work and economical growth. And then there is another layer, the layer of the actions you can undertake as enablers. Enablers. PMI last year has been listed by the Association of Association Executives as one of the 100 organizations that will save the world. Hallelujah. It seems very pretentious, and it is. And honestly, I fully assume that pretension. This is exactly what I want to do. This is very much why I'm sitting in this chair doing what I'm doing now at PMI. How do we do that? Oh, very easy. We enable the 99 other organizations in how they conduct their corporate and their corporate citizenship strategies. We enable through PMI Educational Foundation, so-called youth-serving non-for-profits, discovery education, Formula One in schools. Chris will give you the full list of the organizations by giving them grants, by giving them access to resources, by connecting to these 14,000 volunteers we have to develop their programs and have a concrete and tangible impact. This is what we do for Coalition for Purpose. We have now a partnership with an organization in Africa called the Tony Elumelu Foundation, where we have 150 volunteers participating into enabling incoming entrepreneurs in Africa, supporting this new entrepreneurs in developing their businesses and enhancing the development of African countries. And this coalition for purpose is also a hub of those different organizations. In fact, we're taking the Tonya Lumelu in one hand, we're taking Junior Achievement Africa in the other hand, which is one of the partners PMIF works together. And we mix these organizations, we put them around the same table, and we trigger discussions on how these two organizations, with the support of PMI and this amazing community we have, can do even more by developing synergies and making these organizations working together. And this is what we do also for DNI, be it internally or externally. Very soon we're triggering a roundtable with several organizations, including in US University Hospital, IBM Japan, SHRM, which is the Association for Human Resources, and few others, in reflecting about developing an organizational toolkit around diversity, equity, and inclusion. So all of these different things which we're doing allow us to really realize the full potential of an organization, which is not only a non-for-profit organization, but which has the responsibility, the accountability even, to be a for-purpose organization. And even if you're working for a for-profit organization, profit will not come if your organization doesn't have a purpose. Profit, performance, growth is actually the consequence of the impact you're having. It's a consequence of your ability to generate a movement around your organization, federate people to work with you, to use your services, to use your products. This is what makes the difference between two organizations doing exactly the same things, competing on the same market. The one that will win the game is the one that will differentiate itself through who she is and what is the impact she generates on society, and long-lasting impact. It's not only a one-shot thing. I think I'm done. Questions, comments, anxieties, insults?
Thank you very much, Olivier. Very insightful. I have the feeling that Stuart may have one or two questions.
You're very right, Brian. So Olivier, thank you, fantastic presentation. I was very interested when you listed the SDGs that were areas of most impact for PMI. Personally, I think climate action should be there, and maybe that's a longer conversation for another time, but I was interested in perhaps the rationale why it wasn't there.
Yeah, so somehow it is. Somehow we cover all of the 17. The 6 I mentioned are the ones which basically we cover as actors. The 6 ones, when I go on a stage like this one today, and I say, listen, this is what you have to do to push this SDG, this is what you have to undertake as action. If someone stands up and says, sorry, Olivier, but do you really know what you're talking about? What is your organization doing about this? I have an answer to that. Yes, I know what I'm talking about. And yes, my organization is doing something about it.
Yeah.
So this is really the 6 ones where we have an impact as actors. But the organizations we're working with, through the Coalition for Purpose, through PMIF, through our different partnerships, they have a wider span of impact, which can go through climate change. I mean, I will give you a very simple example. SDG 3, good health and well-being. We're not a medical device, we're not a pharmaceutical company, we're not JSK, but actually we are conducting discussions and we are establishing currently a relationship with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. We don't have an impact on SDG 3, but Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has one. And if we can support Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation in how they generate their impact, then indirectly as an enabler, yes, we cover that. And same for poverty, hunger, clean water and sanitation, clean energy, climate action, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, yeah. I suppose where I was coming from is that at the end of the day, the PMI is all about delivering projects, programs, portfolios, and in fact, those are elements that relate to every single one of those. If we can help each area to deliver more effectively, then we can bring benefit.
It's actually more than that. It's actually more than that. That's why we're not talking about people who recognize themselves as project managers or recognize the application of former project managers or are recognized as such. We're addressing a broader scope of change makers. Everyone who has an idea, transform this idea into a reality, and that reality has an impact, is a change maker. And having an idea, transforming it into a reality is definitely a project, a program, which takes place within a portfolio. And you can deliver the best outcome ever on time, on scope, on specifications, on budget. If the impact of that outcome which you deliver is zero, you have just very well wasted the resources which are entrusted to you. Oh, you did a perfect project on time, on scope, on quality, no problem, but you just wasted your time and your energy. So the impact is very, very much important. More, and if you look at the PMBOK 7, this concept of benefit and value realization is at the core of the things. Tools, techniques, inputs, outputs, processes, all of those things are here to serve a purpose. And the most important is a purpose.
Jeffrey has a comment on that as well about how these things are all interrelated, that climate change will lead to more poverty, hunger, bad health as well. So everything there is interrelated.
Everything is interrelated.
Yeah. I don't know if you have any other questions on there, Jeffrey or Chris. You're unmuted. Do you have a question, Chris VC, or just unmuted? Anyone else? Any questions? Oh, there's Jeffrey.
Yeah, hi Brian. Hi all. Yes, indeed. So sometimes I just have the feeling that we do not fully still recognize the gravity of climate change, and it should be a basic, well, let's say, sustainable development goal for every company to put on the agenda. It's like it's like a big meteor is coming to Earth, and we say we can't do anything about it. So let's focus on some other goals. So yeah, basically that scares me.
Yeah, no, you're right to be scared, especially if you're living in a country which most of the countryside is below the sea level. Yeah, it's scary.
It is not only about this, because climate change will affect indeed the whole way we are, well, let's say, living in this world. It will make sure it will ensure that there people will be migrating because of inhabitable countries, etc. So that will lead to migration, that will lead to additional challenges in society, that will lead to additional challenge in economy. So and yeah, it's also fragile.
Yes, it is. And there is no absolute solution also. it will come from pieces of things being put together at the end. Very often organizations and people have a tendency to look for the absolute magic formula that will solve everything. There is no such thing of absolute magic formula.
No.
And I mean, there is a very simple thing. Recently, we changed our refrigerator because we had our refrigerator died, and so we bought a new one. And now I have a refrigerator that sends me an email every month telling me how much water I have actually used from the water dispenser on the refrigerator. And the interesting thing is that it converts that quantity of water used into the number of plastic bottles which I did not use.
Okay.
And I looked at that and I thought, that's an interesting perspective. Yeah, because if you take your drinking water from the water dispenser, you don't buy. It's a filtered water, and you don't buy any bottled water anymore. And again, this is nothing new. I remember when I was a child, we used to have water in glass bottles, which we were bringing back to the store for to be recycled. We didn't use plastic bottles either. So
it's
yeah.
a difficult subject indeed. Plastic is indeed not the best thing to do, but well, let's say throw away plastic anyway. You can indeed use plastic which is sustainable, to take your lunch with you, or indeed to carry water with you in a plastic bottle as well, which is reusable. And then indeed it's all interrelated, and people are sometimes getting confused in what they need to do, and that's the biggest challenge. Like, for example, if you would like to say, let's do something about construction and decent living. I don't know which sustainable goal is it here. I'm looking at the on the website.
Industry, innovation in infrastructure, it's 9.
Yeah, well, for example, I'm thinking about building a new house and doing it in a wooden skeleton, because it's the best insulation that you can get at that moment. But anyway, you're using wood, and wood comes from trees, and trees you need to have, to take out the CO2 out of the air. So what is the best way? So people are getting up in these decisions actually.
Yeah, it's very difficult. Very often in Western countries, we have a tendency to think that we make green decisions and we drive electric cars, for example, and so on. But what we have mainly a tendency to do is to move our pollution to another place.
Yeah.
I live in the US, and I'm in a fancy neighborhood where we have a lot of people driving Teslas and so on. But most of the electricity in the US is actually produced with non-renewables. It's coal, it's oil, it's gas.
But the difficulty is that people do not understand that we're in a transition, and that transition will only bring its benefits mostly at the end of it. So in the beginning, everything is tough, because you have to balance, and you always have cons for the pros. And people indeed are not so, well, let's say, willing to change all the time, because of course they see some other negative things. But you really have to think in the sustainable future goal of what is the end outcome of it all. And some people don't think that far. And they only see, the short term, and they see, also electric cars are polluting because we're still in this transition mode. And
the problem is that to generate this electricity, you're using non-renewable resources, and the law of thermodynamics is what it is. If you would directly use this non-renewable resource, you would actually generate more than what you're consuming in your electric car. Yeah.
But there are also short-term solutions to this. Put some solar on your roof and charge your car from your solar and then you don't need to touch the network. I mean, these are simple ways around this, but
yeah, if you live in Florida or in Texas, that could be. I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
But even in Belgium, Stuart, this is still a challenge, from a technology point of view. So you may have to lay up 20 panels on your roof to just fill the half of your battery of your car. So we're still not there with the technology as well.
No, we're not there yet. But we have to start somewhere.
Yeah, indeed.
And there is no magic wand. There is no absolute solution for everything. Everybody's contribution, the smallest it is important.
What was he saying yesterday? The longest journey starts with a single step, and that was the subject of Stuart's yesterday. Is how we can all make that contribution as well. It was fascinating. Some key takeaways from me. I like competing on prices is death by hunger. That's stuck in my mind. I'm going to use that one. I'm proud to know that PMI is one of the 100 organizations that will save the world. I can see some Lycra coming out now. I'm very fond of Lycra with PMI Superhero and PMI pants outside. I did notice on your introductory slides that your bottle of red wine was Chateau Olivier. Have you got something else to tell us there as well? You own a chateau and a vineyard?
No, unfortunately not. But I must confess, it's a good one, and it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, but it comes from France, and you're in the US.
Yeah, it's definitely no, but US has some very good ones.
Yeah,
I'm a global citizen, so je ne suis pas chauvin.
Stuart is reaching out. I think he's going to be in touch with you, Olivier. This is a subject close to his heart as well. So I think it's something that's going to go on and on.
Whatever you want.
Yeah. And when we kicked off, I was delighted to see your slide with the SDGs, because when we kicked off, that was exactly the kind of thing that we were looking at, and the focus, making people more aware. In my dream, in the perfect world, I think we'd have had a presentation on each and maybe got the members from the EU there, but it's hard enough work getting all of this put together. I'm delighted that you've linked it back, and that was exactly our intention. So thank you for that inspiring and thoughtful presentation. Yeah, you are indeed a superhero. Again, remind us of the time. What is it? 4:30 now there for you?
4:27. Yes.
Yeah. And that's why I think, again, the list of accomplishments that you shared at the beginning, that's purely only possible because you clearly do not sleep.
Oh yeah, I usually do. No, don't worry. But yeah, we're used to work through different time zones and so on. So it's a common trend. We have a policy though to try to avoid to have this kind of meeting at 4 a.m. But when it happens, and it's good because it allows to have a good exchange. And so I don't let time zones limit me.
No, quite right. No limits. Okay, I'll just, if I may, thank you very much again, but I'll just share a few slides to wrap things up. Let me.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot for having me.
It's been super, and I'll probably be in touch again, because I think there's a few more of our board members and participants that need to hear what you're saying as well. Can you see my full slides there? Well, anytime, but I'll try to avoid 4 o'clock in the morning your time, right?
Yeah, we see your presenters more.
You're on notes, Brian.
Why is this stupid system? Or is it my age? Here we go.
That's better.
Look, Olivier, I learned how to move that black taskbar as well, right? So again, just to wrap up, thank you very much. Thank you to our sponsors. This is cross collaboration between the different chapters. My ambition would be to take that even wider as well. I think it's fascinating, and stories like yours, Olivier, and what we have from Antonio next and Chris later today should be shared by more and many. So let's hope we can continue with that. I've posted in the chat. The next session is with Antonio in 1 minute. It's on a different link. If you have that link, well, I posted it in the chat. Feel free to join. and listen to what Antonio has. And then an hour after that, we have Chris that's going to tell us all about PMI EF, the Educational Foundation. And again, very much looking forward to that. Any problems, anyone doesn't have any of those codes, reach out to me, happy to share them. The more people on board, the more we learn, the more we participate, the better it is. So Olivier, once again, thank you very much. Participants, again, thank you very much. I will share the PDU code as soon as we've generated it. You have 1 minute, grab a coffee, and we'll see you for Antonio. Thanks, Olivier.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Olivier.
Thank you.